Christine Russo said that she doesn't mind if content creators profit off her brother's death, so long as they agree with her. Welcome to the Notorious.tv, your home for all things scandalous, eccentric, and over the top. If you've been following the Mackenzie Shirilla case, you know that Christine Russo, the sister of Dominic Russo, has launched a podcast called The Big Sister Unhinged. If you're not familiar with the case, check out my previous video first, and then come back and watch this one, because today we're breaking down some of Christine's attempts to boss people around, twist facts, and twist her emotions into reality. So let's talk about it. Christine Russo has stated that she launched her podcast, The Big Sister Unhinged, to give her family some narrative control surrounding this case. As we know, the Shirilla crash made national news 4 years ago, and the Netflix documentary from a few months back, The Crash, gave the case much more notoriety. And well, Christine said that she was sick and tired of seeing people mischaracterizing her brother online, and she wanted to launch her own platform to set the record straight. And honestly, you go, girl. I am all about letting your voice be heard, obviously. I've spent 20 years in journalism, and I am all for free speech, free press, all the freedom stuff. But I'll also honestly say that as far as online chatter goes, I personally don't see a whole lot of people saying bad things about Dom. Not to say that it never happens, of course, but a vast majority of people state their condolences for him and then turn their hatred towards his girlfriend, Mackenzie Shirilla, the driver of the car that crashed and killed Dom. People loathe Mackenzie, so much so that if you dare to notice the reasonable doubt in this case, people treat you like you're defending Casey Anthony or Chris Watts. The only people hated more than Mackenzie Shirilla are her parents. And I've got to say, they do kind of make asses of themselves sometimes, which I really chalk up to them being thrown into the limelight because of a situation that really demonizes them and their daughter. Nothing they say will ever be good enough for some people, and I really don't understand why the Shirillas don't have a lawyer acting as like a spokesperson for them, because while they vehemently defend their daughter's innocence, I just think their points would come across much more digestible if they had someone a little more, let's say, eloquent and trained in PR and less emotional making the statements. But back to Christine Russo. In her podcast episodes, she and her cousin talk about Dom, their family secrets, future plans, etc. And can we talk about the resemblance happening in this family tree? For real, like those Italian genes are coming in strong. On the Big Sister Unhinged podcast, the hosts go live for discussions, and they also interview guests, from witnesses who demonize Mackenzie to body language experts and even a paranormal investigator. Christine not only hosts her own show, but also does interviews to share her initiative to modernize the Son of Sam laws to prevent violent criminals from profiting off of their crimes in the digital age. She also plans to take speaking engagements at high schools to warn students about the dangers of toxic relationships and the red flags to look out for. And these are wonderful things. But what seems to escape Christine is that it takes two to tango. There are so many creators out there reading text messages between Mackenzie and Dom. There's a spreadsheet of their interactions that provide a lot of insight into their relationship. People are reading these text messages the same way housewives watched soap operas in the 90s. In these exchanges, Mackenzie comes off as overbearing, sure, but let's not forget that a relationship takes two people. If there weren't two people participating in this dynamic, it wouldn't have existed. Personally, one of the things I noticed that no one ever says out loud is how Dom really kind of pushed Mackenzie's buttons. Like, she was very codependent with him, obviously, and she would really smother him when Dom seemed to want more space. Mackenzie would frequently ask to hang out, and she would go crazy when he didn't want to spend time with her. But what would set her off the most, and it happened often, it's when Dom would make plans to hang out with her, and then she would get all excited, get dressed, do her hair and makeup, nails, lashes, the works, and then he would just suddenly change his mind, sending Mackenzie into a total meltdown.
You ignored me all day. You can fucking call me before you sleep. Dom, call me right now. I have a fucking question. Like, what the fuck? Stop trying to get me not pissed when you fucked me over all day. Dom, what the fuck? Then she questioned. Call me before bed. Then she emphasized. Okay, I'm coming over in the morning. I'm not Ubering to school tomorrow. And then after all that, he says, what? I'm telling you, he knew how to push her buttons. She knew how to push his with the spam. He knew how to push hers with just the one-word answers.
I really just can't say that he was innocent in this dynamic. It's a little passive-aggressive, and which is worse, his passive aggression or her regular aggression? One of Christine Russo's claims that bothers me the most has to do with motive, because the lack of clear motive in this case really gives me pause. Christine claims that Dom was planning to break up with Mackenzie as if he had some clean, decisive exit strategy.
That she's so obsessed with herself and her image. And I really think that that's part of the reason. I think that's why part of the reason what she did to my brother, I think that has a lot to do with it, was her image, and he was leaving her. And that she couldn't deal with the fact that her reputation was going to be tarnished, that she was going to be dumped. And I think that had a lot to do with what she did to him.
And she believes that her brother's intended exit is what caused Mackenzie to snap into a rage and run herself, Dom, and Davion into a brick wall going about 100 miles per hour. Of course, this is a theory, impossible to prove, but what's not impossible to prove is that if Dom was planning to break up with Mackenzie, he sure had a funny way of showing it. If Dom was preparing to break up with her, his behavior the night before the crash makes zero sense. I mean, he went with her to a friend's house to hang out, a little party, I guess you could call it. He stayed the night with her there, and he was still actively hanging out with her socially leading up to this. No witnesses testified that he was distancing himself or avoiding her. In fact, one of the eyewitnesses in the documentary, Rosie, said that Mackenzie and Dom were cuddling on the couch and that he was running his fingers through her hair the night before the crash. It sounds like they were being very affectionate with each other. Definitely not in breakup territory. And of course, I think that we all kind of know that in toxic relationships, people often say that they're done, but they still stay entangled. And it's clear in the text messages that these two were constantly threatening to break up with each other. But Christine frames a breakup as something that was already pretty much a done deal. The only problem is that Dom's behavior does not match that narrative at all whatsoever. This is the perfect example of twisting emotions into reality. She feels like Mackenzie snapped, so she treats that feeling as if it's a proven fact. Christine Russo has also stated that her family really isn't doing so well since the publicity from the crash documentary, which does make sense because I'd imagine the experience is like pulling off a scab.
After the Netflix movie came out, like, this has not been, our family it's not good for us. Like, it's just been so hard.
But there's a contradiction with Christine's behavior because while she claims life has been so hard the past few months, she's still running towards cameras like she's in the Boston Marathon. She's made appearances on TMZ, Chris Cuomo, YouTube interviews, podcast guest spots, her own monetized content, of course, reacting to the documentary. Just saying, if the documentary caused such unbearable hardship, you wouldn't expect someone to repeatedly seek out national media platforms to talk about it. But again, when emotions get twisted into reality, contradictions don't feel like contradictions. They feel justified. At the same time, Christine has publicly reprimanded content creators for getting views off the case after, of course, she participated in the Netflix documentary that went viral, and then she goes on a media tour to talk about the case.
I have a little PSA for all of you wannabe content creators. To all the people trying to become content creators off of my family's tragedy, please stop using my family, our pain, and our unimaginable loss as a way to gain attention, views, followers, or engagement. The fact that some of you are willing to spread false information, make up stories, and defame real people who are already suffering is beyond disgusting and vile. It is cruel, it's pathetic, and completely unacceptable. You do not know us, we do not know you. You were not there, you do not know our lives, our family, our experiences, or what we have endured behind closed doors. Yet some of you continue to speak as if you do.
So here's one thing that I want to get straight here is what we give is based on what we saw in the trial. And based on our opinions of people, because we are allowed to have those, because we do.
I mean, it's really giving watch me, but also shut the f up and don't have any rational thoughts of your own. Something that struck me from one of the Big Sister Unhinged podcast episodes is when they went through and watched some of the comedy skits people had created about the crash. And I've got to say, like, some of the content was really well done and pretty funny. If you're into satire, go watch her episode and see more. But in that episode, you can see the moment when Christine's cousin and co-host has sort of an epiphany when she realizes her own hypocrisy. Check it out.
Content creators are talented. Pretty good.
Yeah, right. Like they make content, and I like this. I think this is hilarious. This is totally different than those creepy people using, like, I know we had a whole conversation the other day about using the story to make money and stuff, and it's like clarifying
Always
again.
the villain stays the villain. I'm
Right.
sorry. And then I'm gonna get, oh well, other people can have other opinions. No, there aren't any other opinions. She's a murderer. She killed my brother and she killed Davion, and that's my little brother. So as long as that stays the villain, then it's fine.
It's fair game.
Period.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So, first of all, you can visually see the moment when there's that clarity that these comedians are using this case for likes and views. But also, Christine's comments that it's okay to make content as long as you agree with everything she and the prosecution say. Speaking of people using her brother's death to grow their platforms, let's talk about this chick, Kat, also known as Bougie Behind Bars, who has grown her following by talking about being in jail with Mackenzie Shirilla. She's made multiple podcast appearances, including on the Big Sister Unhinged. Honestly, I really like Kat's content, but having her on the podcast is really just more proof that Christine doesn't mind people monetizing on her dead brother's back, as long as they perpetuate the belief that Mackenzie did this on purpose. As long as her comment section is full of people locking arms to regurgitate the prosecution's theory alongside her, she's perfectly happy. Christine says that Mackenzie was controlling, but at the same time, she wants to be the one to dictate what content exists, what opinions are allowed, and what narratives are acceptable. This is what happens when someone twists their emotions into reality. They start believing their emotional truth should be everybody else's truth. And Christine does not want anyone to have a single thought that does not mirror hers. There are two sides to every story, and one of my pet peeves is the whole I can dish it out but I can't take it mentality. Apparently, Christine isn't aware that other people actually do have a right to form their own beliefs about what happened, and they are all theories at the end of the day. I think it's hard for Christine to grasp that other people are free agents because she's clearly used to bossing everyone around.
I'm more outspoken. I'm, like you said, we're Italian. I'm the manager of the family.
So this whole not being able to manage the internet is clearly a new concept for Christine. Like, who does this woman think she is? Well, I'll tell you. She sees herself as the moral authority, the content police, and the head bitch in charge of the censorship squad. And she believes herself to be intellectually superior to everyone else. She literally thinks she's the judge, jury, and crucifix. Like, for real. She thinks that she is the judge of who is going to go to heaven.
I think they need to change and become better people. Because there's not places in heaven for people like that.
When a selfie from prison emerged on the Free Mackenzie Shirilla social media accounts, Christine just couldn't understand why Instagram wasn't immediately obeying her and taking the photo down after she reported it.
And she continues to have access to tablets and electronics, and that these sites itself haven't been shut down. I don't understand why. I've reported the Instagrams, the Facebooks, all the sites and things like that, the TikToks, and they allow, these social media platforms are also allowing her to have these pages. I don't understand that.
Okay, so newsflash. Mackenzie is not the only inmate with supporters running social media accounts on their behalf. It's actually quite common, and the people running the pages have the right to free speech and expression just as much as Christine Russo does. Besides her family, others who let Christine be the boss were the Netflix filmmakers. They gave Christine editorial control to edit parts out of the crash that were unfavorable towards her brother.
Had me preview it without me knowing. I walked in and they're like, oh, you're going to preview it. And I didn't see the final version. What I saw, I was fuming and infuriated, and they did edit some, to my requests and things, but
It's wild considering one of Christine's biggest complaints about the Shirillas is how they lack accountability. Listen to her vent about how Mackenzie and her mom spoke about Dom in a jail phone call.
But the fact that, again, that you can't take any accountability, you or your whole family, and that's the reason she is the way she is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's add this in. Let's find a call real quick, and then we'll show everybody what she's saying now, when she's in front of the camera. And let's show how she was talking about Dom when she didn't know the calls were being recorded.
They don't know anything. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah, the only charge that, I think that, I shouldn't even be charged with it, though, because it was Dom. But, I understand I have to take that fucking bullshit. The fucking drugs.
Oh, yep.
That's irritating.
And he should have known better, too, and that makes me mad. I'm mad at him for that. Telling you that you can't get in trouble, so just to hold everything.
He always told me that. He always had me hold everything.
I know. That's because you were a minor, and he was using you for that.
Okay, so I understand not victim blaming. I would never say or agree with anyone who said that Dom and Davion deserved what happened to them, but that is not the same thing as reminiscing about something true that happened. I mean, lobotomies to erase every mistake that a lost loved one ever made is just not a thing. So if he actually did let Mackenzie hold drugs because of her minor status, and let's call it what it is, lack of accountability for dealing drugs, that's kind of messed up. It's honestly not attractive. This is beta male behavior. It's okay to acknowledge that Dom did not deserve to die in a horrible crash while simultaneously acknowledging that having his minor girlfriend hold his illegal contraband so he could potentially escape adult charges isn't really the coolest thing he ever did. And nobody's perfect. It's okay. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the underage dating. The timeline out there is that they dated for 4 years. So when Dom was roughly 16 to 20 and Mackenzie was roughly 13, 14 to 17, 18 years old, they were just under 3 years apart, which I actually know someone in their 30s who is a registered sex offender to this day for getting a 14-year-old pregnant when he was 17. And he did 5 years in the penitentiary for it too. Now, I don't think it's really fair to my friend to have to register for the rest of his life as a sex offender. So believe me when I say that I do not think these situations are always black and white. And I want to dig deeper into this age gap thing because Christine and her cousin Becca, or Becky, I think her name is, they're kind of doing some girl math here, okay? Listen to what they say.
I've cleared this up now 100 times. They were 2 years and some months apart. I'm sorry, 2.5 years.
That's what I say. It was around 2.5 years.
Oh my God, whatever. It's not even a big deal.
So they're two grades apart. And it is a completely normal. It's 2.5 years or so.
They're 2 grades apart.
Yeah, 2 grades.
Right.
2 grades apart is not a big deal when you're both minors when you first meet. Because again, he was 16 and she just turned 14 when they met. It was not a big age difference. It's just crazy that people make it out to be more than what it is.
So let's break it down. That makes them exactly 2 years, 10 months, and 9 days apart. So why do Christine and Becky feel the need to exaggerate the age gap to make it seem smaller? Their age gap was definitely a lot closer to 3 years apart than about 2.5 years apart. And like I said, these things are clearly never black and white, and I honestly don't care one way or another what their age gap was, but it just goes to show that the Russos do take the liberty to spin things when it makes Dom look better. And there's evidence that these two lovebirds, Dom and Kenzie, they were definitely engaging in sexual activities when Mackenzie was 15 years old and Dom was already 18 years old. Here are their text messages from March 11th, 2020. So Mackenzie says, "I'm going to come if you keep doing this." This is another time whenever they are fighting about wanting to hang out and she wants to hang out and he's over at his friend's house. And so they're just kind of arguing about it. So Dom says, "You can't come to Trevor's with his grandparents." And Mackenzie says, "I'm going to come if you keep doing this. I don't care about his grandparents at all. And you're still on D&D. I think that means I'm coming to your or Trevor's house right now. I let you nut in me and you do this. I guess girls are the ones who get shit on." So that's a little graphic. And then on a different day, their conversation shows that Dom knew it wasn't legal. And I know that they were both minors when they entered into this relationship, but I don't really think the law makes a distinction for that. And I don't think that Dom was some pervert either, okay? I just think that their age gap is kind of like dog years when you think in terms of like maturity and whatnot. And Mackenzie was still in high school when Dom had graduated. I guess they were only 2 grades apart. So, she was in high school still for a couple years while he was out of high school. And that just kind of puts you in like 2 different life places, in my opinion. Like maybe when they started dating, they were more on the same mental level. But then as time went on, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy for people to point out the age gap and how that was a contributing factor maybe to this toxic relationship. So on March 18th, 2020, just a week after the previous conversation that I read, Mackenzie says, bruh, Megan told me some shit that AJ said about me and you. Why is AJ telling people that me and you don't fuck? I'm for real about to be so mad. So Dom says, I don't know, that's random as fuck. Are you sure he's saying that? And Mackenzie said, Megan just effing told me. So Dom says, bruh, I don't know. I mean, we don't. Mackenzie says, what do you mean? He said, I'm 18. We don't. She's like, wow, that's how you're going to be? Are you trying to make me cry? So why hide things? Why feel like you need to cover for yourself if there's nothing, wrong happening, I guess? And something that Christine will bring up a lot, I've heard her talk about this multiple times, how she says that the Shirillas were telling their family that Mackenzie was in a coma for several days and they were praying for her, and then come to find out, I guess she wasn't technically like in a coma. Christine says that she was posting on TikTok and stuff, and I haven't fact checked like the timing of her first TikTok after the crash or anything. I don't know. I mean, she might be right about that. Mackenzie, you have to realize she had a lot of injuries, so she had multiple surgeries, and whenever someone has surgery, they will be on painkillers and sedatives and stuff like that in the hospital. So maybe it's not so much that she was in a coma, but she was just not really conscious or not like with it enough to be dealing with Dom's family. And her parents were probably trying to like protect her on some level, just trying to have their privacy in the hospital, which there are patient privacy laws for a reason. Like, I can't say I blame them for just wanting to like chillax and kind of let Mackenzie heal a little bit before bringing in the family of the people that just died in a car accident where she was the driver. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me, but Christine frames it like, why are they lying? Well, I think it's because they were trying to corroborate a story. But then my point is like, why are you and Becky trying to exaggerate the age gap to shrink it and make it look smaller than it really was? Because, I mean, even if we're rounding, they were 3 years apart. So it's just more of kind of the double standard is what I'm getting at. Christine constantly insists that Mackenzie abused Dom and was the aggressor when she was a minor through the entire relationship. I mean, it's just kind of hard to buy that she was so in control of and abusing someone 3 years her senior. Some people get addicted to the extreme highs and lows of relationships, and maybe Dom and Mackenzie were 2 of them. Like I said, it takes 2 to tango. Mutual volatility is a real thing. This dynamic could not have existed without both of their participation. So I'm going to go ahead and name some uncomfortable truths. That the age gap is not only legally, but developmentally significant. It created a power imbalance and volatility, and honestly, it created a dynamic where both were in over their heads. And also, the narrative is that Mackenzie was so controlling. If she was so in control of this relationship, then why was she the one always begging Dom to come over and hang out? And he's like, nah, not tonight. I'm not feeling it, and then they end up not spending time together. Like, it sounds like he was kind of the one in control. I mean, maybe he just kind of didn't have a spine to set the breakup boundary if that's what he really wanted to do. We'll never know, because again, his behavior the night before the crash did not indicate someone who was about to break up with her. And Christine never acknowledges any of this because it complicates her narrative of Dom as a purely innocent victim of Mackenzie's toxicity. But the age gap is a real contributing factor to the instability of the relationship. It just is. And really, to conclude this point, it's delusional to expect that you can demand one-sided protection for your own family while publicly attacking the other side. So, next, I want to talk about Christine's story about meeting Mackenzie for the first time. Check it out.
Very first time I met her was in his backyard, and she showed up, and there was chatter throughout the family like, oh, Dom's got this new girlfriend that's been trying to date him for so long, and we're all like, oh, who's this girl? Dom's first girlfriend. When we first met her, it was in the backyard, and I just remember her, and granted, this is about probably 8 years ago. And I remember she had this tiny little top on, her whole belly out, kind of looked stoned, I guess I would say, like a little disoriented, didn't say hi to me, very touchy on Dominic, pretended like I didn't exist. And it was just the most disrespectful, she came to meet her new boyfriend's family and there was just no respect right off the bat. And I mean, I've had to, like you said, my brother's girlfriends many of them are very scared of me, and they have been, but that one was just right off the bat was like, what's wrong with this kid?
Well, Christine, I mean, maybe Mackenzie didn't approach you because you're not approachable. You said it yourself, you're scary. Why is this first impression only blamed on Mackenzie? Communication and salutations are a two-way street, so maybe Christine should take some accountability for that. And did you pick up on how she said Mackenzie looked stoned that day that they met? Yeah, probably because your drug dealer brother loaded the for her right before the introduction. Like, on some level, I feel like she has to know how ridiculous some of her statements sound. Christine's narrative isn't built on evidence. It's built on her own emotional clarity. That's the whole pattern. Emotional clarity becomes emotional reality, and emotional reality becomes the story that she tells publicly. And speaking of, did you know that I had an emotionless robot analyze the crash? You'd be shocked by what AI thinks really happened on the morning of the crash. So be sure to watch that video after you're done here. The bigger pattern in all of this is selective storytelling. All of these contradictions point to the same underlying issue, that Christine's public narrative is emotionally coherent but factually inconsistent. She is protecting Dom's legacy, simplifying a complex relationship, repeating prosecution theories as objective truth, ignoring contradictory evidence, presenting grief as certainty, and attempting to control the public narrative through media appearances. And this doesn't make Christine an evil person. It makes her a grieving sibling who has built an identity around advocacy, not accuracy. But let's face it, a lot of her claims fall apart when it comes to the actual record. Let me ask you this. If people, Christine included, are so sure that Mackenzie is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then why do they wince at the thought of a jury trial? Are they afraid someone on the jury will feel the way that these people feel? Unfortunately for Christine, reports of paranormal activity and body language experts are not admissible in court. One is considered delusional, while the other is considered junk science. So what we have to rely on really are the facts and the evidence of the case. And Mackenzie's intent at the time of the crash is something that is objectively impossible to prove. But when someone twists their emotions into reality, impossible to prove starts feeling more like obviously true. And in our court system, defendants are supposed to be presumed innocent unless proven guilty. I've said this before, I don't know if Mackenzie is innocent or guilty, but I do not believe that she got a fair trial. And I'll be making a video soon about my theory on why her attorney did not rigorously defend her. But first, head back next Wednesday for my second and final video in this series, Twisted Sister Part 2. If you want to see more of my content about this case and others, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. Also, give the video a big thumbs up right now because it helps my channel grow and it helps ensure that more people see this video. This was Twisted Sister Part 1. I'll see you back here next week for Part 2. And remember, I'm not being mean, I am being accurate. They twist their emotions into reality and I'm just untwisting it. Thank you so much for watching.